How's things?
Yeah, not bad. You?
Yeah, all right. So sorry I'm late. The guy's literally just walked out the door
No, that's fine, man.
from Virgin. Uh, right.
Um,
How's your day been?
oh, it's been all right. Well, it's been busy as fuck actually. I should say, James, I am recording this just on the off
Okay.
chance that anything comes of it in terms of like if it's worth putting out as a podcast.
Okay.
But
I
is that all
doubt
right
it.
with you?
It's fine. You
Yeah,
record what you want. Use me.
nice. Have you
Ah,
pushed a little touch me up, touch my appearance up button on Zoom?
no. Is there a button for that?
I think there is. Yeah.
I don't want to look too good. They were actually quite good lads. They came in. Oh, fuck it. I don't care. Don't know. Fast broadband. And then, yeah, Nat's phoned in the middle of all of that and said, do you want to play at the Platform Tavern on Wednesday? The
Oh,
landlord's
nice.
just phoned up. But
Putting
I
something
think
on before they have to
yeah,
close down.
you met him actually, Stuart. He was at the Dolphin gig. Um,
Yep.
yeah, he was talking. You were talking about his pub, I think, to him, or I was. I can't remember. In the garden. But he's a nice guy. But yeah, Nats and I basically offered and said, "Do you want us to do a free gig for you, considering the way things are?"
Right.
So it's just phoned up tonight and said, "Could you do Wednesday?"
Nice.
Okay, yeah. So Jamie can't do it, so it'll just be me and Nats.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'll have a bit of fudge around tomorrow lunchtime.
Yeah, yeah.
It should be a laugh anyway. Yeah, there's no pressure on it.
Do you think you would still do the? I mean, we could still conceivably do the Jack and Bastian thing
Yeah.
because
Well, I don't. We can't. What during lockdown? You mean?
yeah,
Well, yeah. Not by the letter of the law. We can't, can we?
can we not? There's
No,
no
I can't
mixing
even
with
go.
it. There's no
I can't
mixing
even
with.
go round to see Rich.
Oh, really?
No, I'm fucking going to, but we've had this sort of tacit agreement that you know it's our one sort of moment of sanity in the week. That we can
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
sit down by a fire and shoot the shit about anything. And it's like a little.
It's the same as this for me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's important, and I know
yeah,
Rich has been, said that he gets a lot out of it, and
yeah,
not conversationally really, but just being able to sit there and say anything and just have a doobie and
yeah.
a drink and whatever.
It's hugely
So yeah,
important.
fucked if I'm gonna, you know, I'll give that up. So yeah, I'm gonna see him tomorrow night, maybe Thursday.
Right.
Um, and we'll just be careful. But I mean, if we could go for a walk in the park. We could go and do exercise together in the park, but you're not allowed to mix with people from other households, even in a private garden. So it's full lockdown again.
Right.
Um, yeah. Um, Having said that, I'm not really abiding by it this time round. I just had a conversation with Kat about it, and she's like, "Why are you being all anarchistic about it?" I'm like, "Oh, I fucking had enough." They had the opportunity to do this. They were supposed to do it 2 weeks ago and could have done it over half term when all the kids were off anyway.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
they just haven't.
yeah. I mean, it's tricky to second guess any of this shit, isn't it? Because like no one really fucking knows the right answer. I mean, that. Did you listen to the whole of that podcast?
No, I didn't. I kind of sped listened to bits of it. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
he did a big long intro, so I kind of skipped that and got into the meat of it a bit. But um,
Like, but things, and I don't mean like. I mean, there was a lot of. He presented a lot of evidence, and like, he's putting it out there as if it's, which I think it probably is, as if it's just these are my. Basically, he laid that huge. Most of that introduction is about his credentials. If I'm honest,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I relatively well, they're very very good. Um, but he also makes the point that his career ultimately had put him into um, pharmaceutical development for a massive pharmaceutical company. So he's kind of like coming from the side of it where it's spent his whole time developing drugs for that kind of this kind of virus.
Yeah.
So not only did he do the academic thing, but he also did the production of everything that you would need to deal with it, and also would be on the side of the conspiracy. If he was in the conspiracy, it would make sense because he's from the big pharma ultimately.
Yeah.
Like, and so he lays all of that out. But yeah, but it's things like that, though, it's studies like that which kind of make me feel like there's an element to this where it's like, if I'm not in danger of getting fined and I'm doing my due diligence, then there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we'll just be just fine. Like with small groups, small gatherings, especially people whom we've, not talking like close rooms with loads of people in them and stuff, but But like, for instance, I don't know about you, but I would have no problem if we wanted to try and practice how we would do the live streaming kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. You just got to get them on board with it as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And then their families and stuff as well when they mention it and all that stuff. So
Oh yeah.
it's bound to be some objection, I would have thought, at some point.
But I mean, even just you and I attempting to do something, like I try and record you performing or something along those lines privately on like my channel or on your channel or whatever, and like just get the setup.
Well, I've got this webcam coming tomorrow.
Right. Which one did you go for in the end?
I can't remember.
Right.
It's a 1080p and 30 frames per second, so it should be sharp enough and, without a lot of motion blur.
Yeah.
It's 40 quid's worth, so I'm not spending the earth on it. 50 quid's worth.
Yeah.
But did you see the link I sent about connecting the tone thingy straight to Facebook? I mean, that's a pretty in-depth video, and it's got settings in there. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and so you actually connect the desk to Facebook?
Yeah.
Or do you connect it via a laptop? It must go via a laptop or something, right?
Yeah, so you take the tone bank has got a USB out on it, which we did before. Do you remember? We connected it to Logic because we were looking to see whether it would use it in as a mixer in that way, and it wouldn't work. So plug it into the Mac, and then you go on to Facebook, and when you go to do the live feed in Facebook, you can tell your computer where you want it to pull the audio from.
Yeah.
So you just select the tone bank as your audio source, and then your webcam as your video source, and it's that simple. You only got one camera angle, so it's not exactly the same as your OBS.
Well, this is what I mean, though. If we were going to do this, I would probably bring my laptop or my computer down and use these two iPhones I've got as well.
Right.
And then we can how we would work it in terms of what stream to what, and whether we can flip between streams. But the OBS software allows you to, like, you could do exactly what you're talking about, but plug one of my phones into the computer as well, and just open the OBS software. And then they have in there, you just plug in your streaming ID to the software, and then you can do all the pan to pan stuff.
Right.
Then you can pan from camera to camera
using like the tone.
Use the tone station exactly as you're talking about as the audio source, and that will stream directly with that studio capability in there for the video.
Right. Cool.
And so then if I brought like my laptop and another phone, we could do the same with my laptop and phone and stream. I don't think we couldn't stream to Facebook, but we could stream to my YouTube channel as well at the same time, and have the same capabilities. And I would just use like I'd just bring another mic down, like a room mic or something like that, or whatever. We wouldn't be able to split the signal from the Tone Studio, but wouldn't matter.
I think that'd be a really nice, fun.
It would
thing
really,
to do.
yeah.
Have you heard the album? Did you listen to it?
I haven't listened to it yet. I got it.
I've got two CDs at my house. Has someone left theirs here?
No, I've got my CD. I've got my CD. I just haven't listened to it yet.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I've got a. But I do have a disc player for my Mac now, so I can play it in here.
Oh, okay, right, cool.
But I just haven't plugged it in yet.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah, no, it's you got your PlayStation as well, haven't you? You could play it straight through there, but it comes through the
it doesn't
TV. But
take discs, does it? Mine.
doesn't it? Yeah,
Do they? Fours.
yeah. Fours do.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. You got a CD player?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, no excuses
Um,
really. But I just haven't got around to getting
yeah,
to
no, no.
listen to it.
I've played it a couple of times too. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's frighteningly simplistic in its like
Right.
instrumentation. You know, on the some of the songs where he's got drums, it's a very simple drum pattern.
Yeah.
Nothing flashy. Um, the bass is nice and clear.
Sure.
It's Jack's layered up the few guitars and there's a few backing vocals, but certainly not on every track. He plays some harmonica, but everything I've just said, that's really the instrumentation of the whole album.
Right. Okay. So that's across the board.
Mm. But it's nicely done. The mix is lovely. You know, it's all sounds nice and full. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it would be a nice idea to have them two in a room and for us just to be techies for the day, wouldn't it? And just
Yeah. It's lovely.
help
Yeah. I'd
do
love to
something
do
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and stream it everywhere.
yeah,
I'll stream it to my channel and your
yep,
Facebook channel, and presumably he'd want it streamed somewhere, streamed to his as well.
yeah. Jack's got a Facebook music page, so I guess he'd want it on
He's
there
got a
first and
YouTube channel
foremost.
as well.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been listening to his stuff on there.
Mm.
Like he's got that one TV
Yeah,
that's on
that's on the
YouTube,
album. Yeah,
and I've listened to that a few times.
yeah.
So it's pretty much. I mean, in terms of instrumentation, like you say, that's pretty much it.
Hmm.
What's on there basically is the same throughout.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's. I don't think he's 100% pleased with it. He did say to me sort of privately the other day that um, it's perhaps not his best work in terms of working in that way, file sharing back and forth. Um, you know, isn't the ideal way to make an album. You know, you ideally be sitting there with someone working these bits out and gigging them
Yeah,
or whatever. But he said it's that one-off year, isn't it? This year, you know, there's so many art projects that have been done in a
yeah,
strange way for a needs must basis, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
leads to interesting things.
But is he producing albums like regularly?
Fairly regularly, I want to
Yeah.
say Jack's probably done 4 or 5 solo
Okay.
ones outside of the horse stuff, and they did 3 or 4 as well. So
Right.
yeah, he's always working on
Something.
something. Yeah, um, but he's got some nice chops with the recording process. You know, he's obviously
Yeah, yeah,
knows his stuff.
yeah,
Um, so that's the bit I'd like to pick his brains on a little bit. I've
yeah.
decided I've got to buy a desk. Just sort of came over me the other day, sitting here. I was
Right.
trying to record my live um, sound, thinking I'll
Okay.
just try and get a really nice live sound in here, and then record it. So I opened up Logic, and I've so I've done a whole, and it just each individual track is a song. So I've just kept using new tracks, so it doesn't
Right.
really make any sense, but just to test sounds out. And I realised I can't do what I initially wanted to do, which is to record guitar on one track and vocal on another track at the same time. I
Why
can't
not?
do because the only way because I got Focusrite, they
Got two
blend
though, didn't you?
everything. I've got two,
Yeah.
but the Mac won't accept two USB inputs at the same time. You ask it to choose its input, don't you? And it'll only pick one of the two Focusrites.
So what you have to do is go to audio MIDI setup.
Hmm.
And in audio MIDI setup on the Mac, you create an aggregate device,
Okay.
and an aggregate device allows you to pick both Focusrites, and then essentially that you create a single sound source. that contains the preamps of all four inputs of the two Focusrites.
Right.
So you'll see it pop up when you add that you go, and if you want to show me your screen, I'll talk you through exactly how to do it.
I haven't even fired it up yet.
But yeah, and so what that allows you to do. I mean, okay. Firstly, I would say yes, you need a desk. But secondly, I think you can do what you need to do if you want to, because if you create this aggregate device, it will essentially give you two, because you've got two Scarlett Solos, don't you?
Yeah.
Which have each got two XLR and two jacks.
Each one XLR, one jack.
One XLR, one jack. Sorry, yes. So two XLRs, two jacks in total. Right. So you create the aggregate device, and that's your input bank then, or both of them. As long as both Scarlett Solos are plugged into the Mac at the same time.
Okay.
It will pick both of them up, and you just
and they'll import as in individual tracks. Yeah. Okay.
So that would give you two XLRs in for mics.
Yeah.
And one for. So you could even do then stereo. You could do a mic and DI in with your guitar, so you could plug the guitar straight into the Focusrite. So you've got the pickup and a mic on the neck or something, and a vocal mic.
Okay, yeah, that would work. Yeah, I really only want two. I just want the condenser mic on the guitar and the SM58 for vocal.
Yeah, well, you could do that.
And then I'll be able to mix it afterwards to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's not a bad. I mean, it's not especially if you turn the, because you can blend your pickup, right, between mic and just piezo.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would be good to take the jack input as well from the guitar, because then you can essentially pan them left and right in the track. You can capture them both, pan them left and right, and it'll give you a stereo sound, or keep them center to mix and blend some reverb into one of them, or do you know what I mean? It just gives you a bit more flexibility.
Yeah.
And because the input from and so if you dial out the mic on your guitar completely, so it's just piezo.
I've tried that blending thing with the live cell, because I've had it set up through headphones, so I can listen to it quite intensely.
Yeah.
And it is, the blend is, I think, is suited much more, like 3/4, maybe a little bit more towards the microphone.
As opposed to live situation.
For a live situation.
Oh fuck yeah! But for a recording
sound does that kind of.
Yeah, but for a recording, because you'll get the, so you want the mic on. You've got the mic on the guitar, so you're going to get that love. You don't need two mics, especially you don't want a mic facing another mic directly when you're recording, like one from inside the guitar and one pointing at the guitar. So just take what you actually want in that recording situation is just that solid piezo pickup with no variation, because the DIN will just give you this really solid, clean signal, and even if you don't like the EQ on it, it doesn't matter, because you can EQ it to fuck once you've got it into Logic. So you take out all of the tinniness and you just roll off the bottom end, so there's no boom, there's just the clear mids and everything, and then you can do whatever the fuck you like to it at that point. Like just becomes that extra tool.
This is what how do I do this? So have you ever seen this little surround sound symbol? So I got that by going in, just messing around afterwards, but where I've got the channels down here, stereo out. Stereo out, output. And then in here, you've got stereo and surround.
Right, what does surround do?
Well, if you hit surround, then it slings this little symbol in there.
Yeah.
And one onto the track. So I've just done it onto this bottom track here, so it's just popped up there.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that it like, I don't know, it recreates like a surround sound thing, because it looks like it's funneling towards the front and then a couple at the back and sides kind of thing.
But what's your output for that? Just your stereo speakers?
Yeah, it's the same speakers. So I don't understand how well that can
No, I've
actually work or not.
never seen that.
So yeah, I just did loads of these tracks yesterday. I'll just fuck with this one now, haven't I?
Does it create a difference in the headphones?
It creates a different sound, yeah. But I don't think I've got the ears really to.
I hear crystal raindrops fall and the beauty of it all when the sun comes shining through.
And they're all individual tracks, so I've got 7 of them. I can play 7 songs at once.
Is that fun?
Yeah.
I've been trying to learn It's Your Thing.
Oh, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isley Brothers?
Isley Brothers.
Yeah. Classy tune.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun. It's got that that chorusy bit, which is like, which is quite interesting to try and learn.
Yeah.
To slice my pinky open with the E string.
Oh.
Yeah.
How the fuck did you do that?
On the E string, trying to learn It's Your Thing.
Oh, like a cheese wire, kind of like a cheese cutter effect.
Yeah, exactly like that. Well, like a paper cut or something. It was painful, sir.
Well, are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I just had to learn how to practice it with my other hand. I mean, not my other hand. That would be
swap hands.
I wouldn't be doing that, would I? That wouldn't work.
No, that wouldn't work. No, you'd hurt yourself more trying to swap hands. Right?
Yeah. I was thinking about like the songs that we've actually got that are finished. Because we still haven't mastered them all.
No, most of them were done that day, weren't we? And we only did 2.
Yeah, I need to go back over like the notes, but I think now they're all done because I think when I went on holiday, I finished them all off. So I think we need just to sit down and firstly, just the ones that are mastered are. We mastered one of yours, didn't we? Which was, I can't remember now. Which one?
Vacate? No.
Vacate. Yeah, maybe. And I did Breath, and then I put Breath out on Spotify since then.
Yeah.
But there's still the other.
You remixed it, didn't you? Actually, and remastered it.
Yeah. And then there's the other. And then there's the other 5.
Yeah, the Weezils is done, isn't it? Pretty much.
Was it Weezils we mastered?
No, we didn't. I don't think.
Okay, but so, like, because I think I'm gonna, like, I'm pretty much done with Project. The one I sent you, the harmonies.
Yeah.
I kind of want to I want to put that out on Spotify.
Ooh.
So I think I'm just going to do that with that one, and so I can move on to something else. So I don't know if we want to. So my point being is that I'm not going to shoot anymore for producing an album for the 25th of November. I just.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And nothing to do with the fact that we haven't done any more work on those tracks or anything like that. I don't have enough tracks for an album at this point, and I would do maybe if I'd kept Breath and Project to it, but I just kind of want to put them out. So I'm kind of like moving my own goalpost, but I'm still putting stuff out there, so I don't feel shit about it at all. But yeah, but what I was thinking then was, why don't we try and set a date to produce, because you're doing stuff as well, right? But we've still got some songs in the mix that are ours that we could add in. Why don't we just aim on producing a joint album at some point, like
with
by
those
spring
tracks
or something?
Yeah. Okay.
And we've got the basis of 5 tracks to start with. Unless you want to release Weezils or whatever, but we've got a base of a few tracks to start with. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. What have we got? Like 8?
I haven't got it on there.
It's like 8 tracks. So we need 10 minimum.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't matter, does it? But
not really. As long as it comes across like an album, I guess. Like,
and you can release it on your DistroKid thing. You can release it as an album on Spotify, right? So
yeah. And I could do it in our band. I don't have to do it as my single name, like the stuff that I released, Breath. We can do it as Heavy with Plums.
Yep. Okay.
So it would just be a matter of coming up and mixing together, like, maybe 4 more songs.
Yep. Which we've got, haven't we? We've got the songs.
So. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I would think so.
Not ones we've necessarily started yet, but there's ones in the tube that we could add in. I just need to get my act together with recording here, really, because I'm struggling with getting a good sound.
Well, but why don't we try something like, because at this point in time we've always done it the way around where it's kind of come through me to mix. But why don't I just send you? Why don't I just record?
Oh, you
something?
said you texted me about having a go at mixing one of yours.
Well, yeah, and initially in my head at that point, I was thinking, actually, because I was so in the weeds with Project, I was kind of like, why don't I just strip everything off this and see if I could send it to someone? And that's when I sent you that message. But yeah, kind of like but now I'm over that hump with Project. Okay. But yeah, something like I choose like that one that Reef, like the one with the riff.
Oh yeah.
Like if I just recorded a basic drum beat, the riff, some kind of chorusy feel, an acoustic guitar, whatever, just the raw tracks, and I don't put any plugins on it or anything. I just leave it as a bare project. So then it comes to you, and it's just a playing field. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want to it at that point. You can add more to it if you want to record MIDI. If you want to put anything in like that, it's easy. You don't have to worry about the sound quality or anything. If you want to put an acoustic guitar into that mix, you would just need the DI signal at that point.
Yeah.
Like you're not making it. You're just adding texture at that point, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then we like have a time frame, like of some sort to kind of like we'll get it somewhere close to mastering around Christmas or something loose enough that it doesn't doesn't become a burden. It just becomes something to fuck around with.
Okay. Are you still doing your podcast videos?
I'm up to 40.
No way.
Yeah, I've got 40 of them out. So yeah, and like it's definitely that feeling like project is done. I've got to get it out the fucking door. I can't deal with it anymore. That was episode 40 basically.
Right.
Because like it's just gotten too overbearing. But pleased with the result now that I've got through it. But
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Yeah.
pace has slowed a little with the videos, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
About two every 2 weeks rather than three every 2 weeks. But
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot though, isn't it? Now we got a month of fucking lockdown again. Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, but I
yeah, I
need a
don't know how
desk.
to feel about it.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think it was going to happen. You know,
Did you
Rich
not?
and I were talking about and saying, "Do you think there'll be a national lockdown?" I said, "No, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go that route." But it's obviously bowed to pressure or whatever. No, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? But yeah, it is what it is. But doesn't really affect me massively. Just
No, it just is another burden of pressure.
mm,
It's just another feeling of unease.
yeah,
Like, yeah, I don't like it. And I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how legitimate I feel it is.
that's the thing. This time, I feel the
Yeah,
same. You know, I think a lot of people do. It's just you questioning the legitimacy of it,
yeah,
which is kind of dangerous place because if we're both feeling that way, then you can imagine an awful lot of other people are as well that are
yeah,
having these same conversations now and saying, "Ah, fuck it," you know, we just. I mean, they split up. They split up a 500-person rave on Saturday night in Wigan, and then another 300 people. You know, all on Class A's, whatever, dancing in the forest or whatever. So people are organising these massive free parties, you know, and just
but
the police are
I mean
coming in
this.
and smashing it up.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of things there though, isn't there? There's like the legitimacy thing is kind of in me has been eroded just because of a few things I've read or listened to, like that podcast,
Yeah,
a few other sort of experts on podcasts talking about different elements of it, like a lot of people talking about the economic and social, like
mm,
um, effects above and beyond anything else. Yeah, and then the other side of it is essentially though this lockdown does give the police the powers to be more draconian with their
mm,
actions towards things like 500 people raves and all of that
yeah,
sort of shit. Where with everything being really wishy washy, with well, we're not in Wigan, so we can't be
yeah,
part of the lockdown, kind of
yeah,
thing. You know, it's national now, so
yeah.
it's everyone.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that guy on that podcast was sort of, you know, he was asked, you know, what do you think it is then? Is it a massive conspiracy by the world governments to take away civil liberties? And he was sort of saying, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe there could be a conspiracy on that scale. It's more opportunism on the behalf of these governments or whatever. They're seeing the opportunity for a power grab and being able to take these things, and they're just going ahead and doing it, and no one's
Yeah,
questioning it.
yeah,
But
yeah, I kind of thought because the way he described Patrick Vallance in the video was that he said and at one point the James Delingpole turned around to him and said, um, "So, Sir Vallance was a mate of yours. You were at college together." And he said, "No, no, no. We were never friends. I respected him. He was very ambitious and he's very bright, and he was sure about where he wanted to go. And I thought he was very skilled, but we were never mates. And he's always been extremely ambitious." And I think that's what he was referring to in terms of the power grabs. It was like this guy's got an opportunity to be on the national stage and tell everyone exactly what to do, and it's that's kind of at the heart of the problem. Is Sage, this body of people, have made decisions that if they now go back on, they lose face.
mm-hmm.
Like there's those elements in play here, and it's to the detriment of everyone. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of this. Yeah,
it's all those things you worried about at the beginning of it, you know, people's mental health and jobs and the economy and all that kind of stuff. It was all secondary at the time, wasn't it? It was just like, this is just what
yeah,
we have to do.
yeah,
And, you know, the government was being very
yeah,
supportive at that time, and the furlough scheme and ploughing money into arts and whatever. But
yeah.
a lot of that has dried up, and
Well, thank
it's tough
fuck
on
they,
people, you know.
fuck yeah, thank fuck they put the furlough scheme back in frankly.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have much of a choice, did they?
No.
I mean, it would have just ruined people. It's going to ruin people anyway. I mean, it's going to these poor pubs and little restaurants and things. I mean, the fuck they're supposed to do now.
Yep.
And that's what Stu from the Platform Tavern has phoned Nats and said. He said just come down and play on Wednesday and fuck the law. You know, I'm not overly concerned about whether or not we're allowed to do it, but it's my last night before I've got to close again for a month. So if you're happy, just come down and play.
Yeah.
Now that's from the landlord of a pretty decent Southampton pub, and he's a good guy. But if he's I don't mind going and playing. I said to Nat, so that I can't see for a second that we're going to get arrested or we're going to get in trouble because we're there at the behest of the pub owner. It'll be on him. But it's I was saying to Kat earlier that two of the people closest to me, like you and Rich, you're both pretty centered, logical, intelligent adults, and I've seen the pain in both of you, in sort of different ways. I mean, I see how it's affected you, and I can definitely see how it's affected Rich. I mean, he's been struggling with it all, and he's got a decent house, and he's got all, same as you. He's got everything there. He's not struggling in terms of not having a job or
can you imagine what it's
massive
like
hardships, but
like if
still getting to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine what it must be? The pressure on people who are not in our situation is just inconceivable. Like
tiny little flats on a high rise in London, with three kids or whatever. I mean, it's fucking. These people must be just distraught, and it's that kind of thing that I'm thinking. Well, hold on, Sage, are they taking that kind of stuff into account or not? There's a knock-on effect.
The main, it was interesting because the guy, one of the points that I thought was really interesting that he brought up was that viruses of this nature don't historically have second waves. Like, the reason that flu is essentially a 12-month cycle is because the influenza virus is an extremely fast mutating one. Right, so by the time it gets round, however it gets round, it comes back through the population 12 months, 16 months, whatever it is later, then it has mutated to the point where you need another little dose of like T cells or whatever in the vaccine to bump you back up again. But coronaviruses are very slow mutating viruses in the bigger scheme of things. And he was saying they don't have second waves. It's because that it's not herd immunity as such. He's not talking about that as a concept, whatever that means these days. He didn't even mention herd immunity, I don't think, in the podcast. But he's just saying that they run out of people to basically pass to, because there are a certain number of people who are susceptible to it. There's a certain number of people who will just shake it off before it even hits their system, because of various different forms of immunity that various different people have. It's why some people never have colds, right? They get them, but the body kicks them out before they get to the point that it starts to need to kick in the immune system and creating the symptoms, right? So they get them, they're just gone straight away. And so if we were going to have a second wave, then London was the first place hit. And it was the most massively hit in terms of infection rates. Straight off the bat, right at the beginning of the crisis, it was the worst area. And he said if it was the case that we were going to have a second wave, well, surely the second wave would be in London. And we're not seeing rates of death rates in London going up at all. And, none of that's happening. And he's kind of like, what we're seeing mostly around the country is the effects of the testing, like the mass testing of people and false positives. Because the rate of false positives for this particular test is like 0.1%. It doesn't sound like very much, but actually in huge range of testing, or is it what is point or 1 point? You have to listen to the podcast to get the exact numbers, but it's big enough that that's what's we're seeing the numbers in, and everyone's saying that's good, but the government aren't. In none of the government papers have they released that stat, like what the false positive rate is. They haven't put it out, and so there's another virologist who had gone out and done the work to find the test positive rates, and she's published a paper with it in there. And if you combine then those two sets of data, that's basically what the entirety of that guy's thesis is, that what we're seeing in the northwest and so on, where they're actually canvassing entire streets, putting tents out in the worst they're not lab conditions, and these are not lab technicians doing the testing. That should also be mentioned. Like, so he's bringing all of those things together. So even if that's not true, you listen to that and you're like, fuck, like there's so much going on here that's like, how do we, like, you're right, Sage, do they fucking know anything really? Like, are they doing all of this research, or what's going on there? If any of that, what he's saying is true, and that's his point, if any of it is true, if any of those facts going into it is true, then it breaks up the premise of what they're trying to do. And if they know that, why aren't they fucking telling us that?
Yeah, I know. There's loads of that, isn't there? Why aren't they just telling us the full? It feels like we're not getting the full picture of it. When you look at the numbers of deaths and the infection rate and all the rest of it, it doesn't, on the face of it, as a totally non-scientist, it just doesn't seem to make sense that you lock down the entire country for that reason, and you just trust to a higher intelligence than your own, don't you, to do it? But I think you can have so much civil disobedience over the next month over this stuff.
I agree.
I mean, if you were offered the choice of, say, you have to lock down for a month, or you can actively have coronavirus, I mean, I think I would just say, yeah, all right, I'll just give it to me, because I don't think it's going to be that bad, and I would be okay. But obviously
you can't say that, James. It just makes you selfish, James.
It does make me selfish, and obviously I wouldn't throw my nan into that kind of mix, and that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they've constantly refused this thing about isolating older people, haven't they? Why don't you just isolate the vulnerable people? When you talk about those people that are very susceptible to it, it's in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But that's a lot easier, considering the age of those people, that a lot of them are probably not working these days, and live fairly isolated lives anyway. I mean, why is it not more sensible to lock those people away and let the rest of us, use the herd immunity thing or whatever on the people it's not going to affect, and take the hit? But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm seeing Rich on Thursday night, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah. He keeps sending me the legislation and saying, aha, I've got it. Yep, we can mix outside for recreation and sport. So as long as we're both, flipping a dice or something in the garden, then we're okay. But I mean, it does specifically prevent you from meeting in a private garden. So it would be on me for being round Rich's house if I was caught there. But this is Rich, who was so ultra cautious the first time around. I mean,
it's a good point. Yeah,
he wouldn't leave the house. So I don't know. It's just so much coming down the tube, isn't there? I mean, you've got this 4 weeks of lockdown. Gove's already come out and said, well, that's just bare minimum. It could well be more than that.
Yeah,
it's killing retail and pubs in the run up to Christmas. Amazon's gonna, this is where the conspiracy stuff comes in, isn't it? Because Amazon are basically being handed the entire of the UK retail Christmas sales. There you go, guys, get on with it.
Yeah, Black Friday, here it comes.
Yeah, and I was thinking, fuck Amazon. You know what I mean? Someone should be going to Amazon from the government, the UK, and saying, look, we're essentially giving you this billions and billions of extra business. We want you to pay, $1 billion back into helping COVID, because it's really unfair that you've benefited.
That's a fucking really good point, man.
You know, they don't deserve it. I mean, Bezos's personal fortune has grown by, you know, just billions and billions. I mean, so much money because everyone's buying on Amazon, and not just for this period, right? The people make that switch; they don't switch back.
No.
Amazon are going to be so colossally in charge of world
Yeah,
retail.
and you're right, and the fact that they're not. I mean, it feels like it feels almost like the rebate from Amazon should be universal basic income for everyone.
Yeah.
Like if you want all of that wealth and money going through your systems, because that's all you really want is just that constant flow of cash and return and cash and return. Fine, that's fine. Just set it up so we all get enough money we can keep a roof over our head.
Yeah.
But fucking.
Oh, it just does piss me off. I keep having this argument with my dad where I say, you know, Amazon it's a way of selling, but it's an invention at the end of the day, isn't it? I mean, the way of online retailing, of hoarding products in massive factories and then shipping it out, that model is like, it's like inventing the light bulb. You know, if the guy that invented the light bulb was still around and he was charging £1,000 per light bulb, you know, there would be a point where people come and say, okay, you've had the patent, mate. You've done all right out of it. You know, you've got to give that up now.
I love that. Thomas Edison's knocking on my door saying, "You bought 10 fucking light bulbs, motherfucker."
I want my cut. It's my invention. And at a certain point, people step in and say, "No, Edison, you've got enough tins of beans in the cupboard now. You know, you're doing all right." And that patent then passes past a certain date, and then anyone can make it, right? So I think that's the thing with Amazon, is that website should essentially be able to be used by every retailer. Government mandated to say, you know, you've had
so it becomes a public
billions.
service essentially.
I mean, it's like the high street. If you invented the high street, and shops in a row on a street, that's my idea. No, sorry, you can't do that in Wigan because I've got it in Southampton. You know, it's like you can't patent something like that because it is just how it's the conduit through which people buy products, not the actual products themselves. So. Of course, my dad disagrees with that, as you can imagine, because that's socialism, Kev. That makes me a communist.
Yeah. Well, is it interesting? Because that's like all of the I'm listening to a lot of US pundits talking about Twitter, for instance, and the Hunter Biden case where they banned anyone from sharing the link to the story about Hunter Biden's emails. Did you see that one?
Lock him up. Sorry, you got me going.
Yeah, but did you see that? Like Twitter, if you shared the link on Twitter, you couldn't. It shut down. It wouldn't send the tweet. So the New York Post puts this story out about Biden's emails, and Twitter basically and Facebook actually get out there and say, you can't share this news story on your Twitter or Facebook feed.
Right.
Which is kind of it's ludicrous, right?
Yeah.
And so. That's what people. So in the US, this has pushed this debate even further. Is should Twitter and Facebook be public utilities?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's totally unfair, surely, for these people to own all of this real estate and censor it. You can't do that. That it's the same thing. It's like the patent thing, and at the same time, it's free speech. You can't have it because that's how people communicate now.
Yeah.
It's become the way people talk to each other, especially now.
Yeah, it's like the soapbox thing in Hyde Park, where you can take a literal box and stand on it and speak to the public. It's like Mark Zuckerberg invented that and was like, no, I'm going to control what people can and can't say on that free. It's essentially the wrong word, but unconstitutional. I know we don't have a constitution, but it's that same.
But it is
thing. It goes against the very concept of free speech.
Completely.
We're fortunate, I guess, in a way that Zuckerberg at least pretends to be a fairly middle. He doesn't seem to have politics particularly on his agenda in terms of left and right, and obviously crushes down on terrorism and denying the Holocaust and all those things like that are banned. And all the rest of it. But it doesn't have to be that way. And God knows how the algorithms work, because you only see what you see. You don't see what you're not allowed to, do you?
Have you seen A Social Dilemma?
Kat has. She's always going on about that.
The Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite eye-opening in terms of the way the algorithms work. Yeah, and there's a guy on there called Tristan. I can't remember his last name. The guy's basically put the film out and whatnot, and he was a Google ethics advisor. Like, he was at Google when Google first sort of started up, and was there throughout this whole kind of iteration that all of these platforms went through with this kind of attention matrix, is what he calls it. You know, when the likes came to Facebook, or when the Twitter feed and the resharing came to Twitter and all of that sort of stuff, that's when those business models really kicked in, started working. And so what they do is this. You should watch it. It's decent. It goes through a lot of that. I don't know about the politics thing. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, if it is a public platform, and if that is what it's going to be, then there is the argument with free speech that it has to be completely free. Like, you have to be able to have Holocaust deniers say their stupid ass shit, so that they can be, so everyone can come out and say, no, that's really shit speech. Like, if that stuff is just allowed to fester and people don't talk about it, that's when it becomes a bubble that grows and grows and grows. Free speech is the thing that pricks it. Free speech is the thing that gets out there and says, you tell me your stupid ass ideas and I'll counter them. And the majority of people who are sensible and well thinking will read everything in its entirety. They will read both arguments and they will come to a conclusion. But you can't, the fact that people don't, their attention spans are so shit that they don't spend the time to think through things, that doesn't mean you can take away free speech. That's not a reason to take away free speech.
No. I mean, if it's, but it's not just, it wouldn't just be me on this video sitting here saying, oh, yeah, the Holocaust never happened. I don't believe it. And it was a, conspiracy by governments to, whatever. It's not just me talking to camera and saying it. It's people putting together these little films, with graphs, and then perhaps like pictures of people being murdered with classical music over the top. Yeah, totally unrelated to it, but with dates and times underneath that are totally false. Just
But I only need to turn around and pick a book off my bookshelf to know that that's completely erroneous. Like, do you know what I mean? And that's my point. Yeah. You can't censor someone saying that stuff because it's so easy to refute. It's so simple to refute. Like, it's as simple as flat Earth to refute. Like, so you can't have those. You can't take the ability of well-meaning people to refute stupid ideas. The only way if you remove the ability for people to put their stupid ideas out there, then you don't give people a platform to come out for everyone else to hear as well. That no, this is a stupid idea. Look, I'll take you through all of the evidence. Done, kind of thing. Now, whether these platforms that we have are capable of allowing us to communicate in such a way that gives you that opportunity for people to hear and listen to the refutation of all of those stupid ideas, that's a completely different question. And that's where it really gets tricky about, like, if these are private corporations that are not going to publish, or not publishers, so they're not beholden for the work that's put out on them. They have no responsibility. They're just a private corporation. That's their argument all the time. They're not publishers, so they're not responsible. Then that's where it gets really tricky, because then that's where the thing about it's the public marketplace of speech for everyone now. So should you be a private corporation? Like, or should you really be a marketplace for speech which has, it doesn't have these algorithms that drive stupid shit up the chain for everyone to watch because they know you tend to watch stupid shit more than you watch long form sensible discussion. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're the exception, I think, in that case, because people don't have bookshelves behind them. They don't fact check. And most people's news, certainly young people, doesn't come from the BBC or even from Fox or wherever. It comes from Facebook. That these things are being shared around. I mean, take the QAnon. I don't know how you say it. QAnon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dangerous shit. I mean, that's and that has a big place now in the global structure. I mean, they're talking about how many people believe it. I mean, it's in the double figures percentages wise, certainly in the US, that people think that stuff is true and has, not that they believe it's true, but they believe that there's fact-based evidence to support it.
And with the QAnon, just remind me, the QAnon stuff is...
Well, at the heart of it,
Pizzagate.
The world is controlled by an elite of paedophiles who run an elite paedophile ring, and it leaks into every, the whole Epstein thing, and fuck me, it might be true, I don't know, but it's certainly not. It's not been presented irrefutably facts-based, evidence. It's not on the BBC, which are, I like the BBC because they're, I do think of them as being a British institution, but they are held to account, right? I mean, a BBC journalist can't say something on air without being called on it. Even Fox, to a certain extent, I mean, they can come out, they can slight things, and they can twist and turn. And
I mean, Hannity would, you just watch one episode of Hannity, and that is blown out the water. Fox will say whatever the fuck they want. CNN and MSNBC will say whatever the fuck they want, if I'm honest with you. The BBC...
Tucker Carlson, you seen him?
Yeah, Tucker Carlson is one of those guys that he's hard to pin down.
Yes. He is hard to pin down.
Yeah.
A lot of them are, and
I mean, and he's either... He does a very good job of walking the line between being slimy enough to get away with everything and being well spoken enough to sometimes think, oh, hold on, maybe he's talking sense. Like, do you know what I mean? He wavers in my mind between, sometimes I hear him speak and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I don't mean on his show on Fox. I mean when I see him in debates or I've seen him in other sort of places. On Fox, it's rare that he does it, but he does do it every so often. Like he was the only journalist that had Brett Weinstein on when that whole thing with Evergreen campus kicked off. Don't even remember, that was like 4 years ago or something ridiculous. Like he was the only journalist in the US that had Brett Weinstein on, and to go, but he's slippery enough that I don't think he's worth using as a news source. Never.
No.
Get him in a debate format. He's an interesting guy to listen to and may have some things to say.
Yeah.
But as a news source, fucking wouldn't trust him. But I wouldn't. Same token, I wouldn't trust a lot of MSNBC either. No, I wouldn't. I mean, you get, I can't remember what the channel is now, but the ones that sort of fact check Trump, what they called, can't remember, but there's loads of them, and they're essentially in my camp, in terms of politics. But they go too far, they try and just twist the envelope every time and make Trump out to be worse than he is, and you don't need to do that, right? No, you don't.
But people are lazy. They pick a champion. I mean, I know people that are just like, they love Piers Morgan, so they'll just listen to Piers Morgan, and whatever he says is just kind of what they believe because they trust him and that's their guy. Same with Farage. I mean, a lot of people just believe anything Farage says. Trump, Hannity, Tucker Carlson, these guys are believable.
Is it then that, and this is kind of where I always end up back asking myself the question, is it then that really the problem is the fact that we live in a world where all of the information is at our fingertips. We can follow credible sources and we know what they are. They are out there and they're available to read and they're available to find. libraries still exist. Those repositories of journalism and stuff all still exist. We can go get the facts. So is it more about the fact that it's I always think at heart it's got to be down to the education system in our countries that don't concentrate enough on teaching people how to just think well. Like we get so obsessed with teaching people how to do this or that. Like it's got to be a black and white skill. It's got to have a metric by which it can be absolutely 100% ticked off.
Yeah.
And that requires you by its very nature to make everything extremely structured. And that structure doesn't allow people to, in its essence, it becomes dogmatic. It becomes the way you have to teach, and this is where everyone has to go. Don't ask me why. It's just the national curriculum. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make a huge amount of sense. It never served me well when I was going through it. The majority of my education came from my parents, I would say, and the friendships I've built up. Really, like learning, just Jim teaching me how to listen to fucking music.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's where it comes from.
Yeah. But even those friendships are digitized these days, aren't they? I mean, they're all Facebook.
Yeah, well,
based,
not me. I mean, that's one of the reasons.
No, not me either. Really, I don't.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I never post on there. I'm just reading things, and I just.
But you're right. There's a lot of people who,
And objective truth is very hard to pin down sometimes. I mean, even if you take Trump with coronavirus, right? I mean, it's obviously wrecking destruction across that country, and they have more deaths there than anywhere else in the world. And it's patently obvious to most people that it's because of his lack of reaction to it and all the rest of it. But he gets to sit there in interviews time and time again and say, no, you've got this all wrong. There are more infections showing in the US because we are the best at testing. We do the best testing. I've done so many tests, and the more you test, the more you're going to find. So that's why the numbers are higher, just because we test more than these ridiculous countries. And he said that time and time and time again. And his supporters will clearly just believe that. But it's very hard to empirically come back to that with objective truth. I mean, there was a stat I heard the other day that yes, they've increased tests by 5%, but the infection rate is up by 25%. So it doesn't follow. But as soon as you get into percentages and numbers on it, you lose people because they're after the headline. They don't want to get into the weeds with the.
It goes back to the same thing. I mean, I think on the coronavirus, you're right as well about objective truth in those regards, because the facts are there's so many unknown unknowns. You don't know the number of people that are being marked as corona deaths when they're not actually corona deaths. You don't know how many of the tests are false positives. You don't know, there's so many, and none of them make an argument. None of them are a political game to be played. None of them are any of those things. It's inevitable that they're going to become them. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. They do I mean, I was serious about taking Wednesday off. What happens in the US?
Fuck me, man. I sat and I was sitting here last night, and up on YouTube came one of Trump's rallies live. Right. It was happening there and then, so I thought, fuck it, in for a penny. Might be the last one I get to watch. So yeah, slung that on, and it's fucking dangerous. I mean, the guy is, he's rambling, just, Hunter Biden, lock him up. Just the rhetoric is just appalling. I mean, the man is horrible to watch.
But he's almost a perfect snapshot of what we were just talking about in terms of attention spans. The reason the reason he can talk like that and people just fucking go along with it is because people like hear the thing they want to hear and then go, "Ray!"
Yeah.
Like, and then
Yeah.
as soon as they stop cheering, oh, he's on to the next thing. Ray! Like, it's nuts. It's really nuts.
Yeah. He's mocking people that are wearing masks.
Yeah.
He's, laying into it. The guy's just, but the fact is, right, there will always be people like Trump. There always have been people like Trump. What the fuck is wrong with the American system that has allowed that man to get into office? And that's the damage that can't be undone, regardless of whether Biden wins or even 10 years' time we'll still be feeling this. The mistrust that people will have in the office of the President of the United States is that man should be better than that. And the systems around it should mean that he has to be better than that to get the job. So something's gone very, very wrong. And the repercussions of that will be huge. I think he will lose. I think touch wood. I do think so this time. Looking at the polls and
at this point in time in my mind,
I know. I don't. I don't want
to. All bets are off, man. I'm telling you, all bets are off. Like, because I just already I'm in that full the polls.
Yeah, well, they were wrong last time, weren't they?
I don't care. Like, and also when you feed in elements to it with we might know Florida's result on time or in time, in a timely fashion, shall we say? That might happen, but states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, other states like that, the results might not be in for several days after the election.
Yeah, which is very unusual, right?
Yeah, and so many people. Yeah, absolutely, because none of these states normally. Early voting doesn't really happen. Like, people are allowed to do it in most states all of the time.
Yeah.
But it rarely happens. People generally, if they're going to vote, go out on election day, and it's a very small percentage vote early.
Yeah.
But this
up to 90 million. That was the last I heard.
It's
already
nuts.
Voted.
And states like Pennsylvania can't count those votes till election day.
Yeah.
Like, so they not only are they manning voting centres and they can't start counting until the polls, but then they've got the backlog of
they're holding those votes there.
Voters, so many new voters. The turnout's ridiculous.
Yeah, very high, like 45%, which is very high. But even Trump at his rally, I mean, he's decrying the postal thing. He's saying, "Oh, has anyone done one of those postal votes?" And the crowd are sort of like, "Oh, we're not sure whether to cheer for this or not."
And then he goes, he said 2 or 3 or 5 and 15.
And he's shaking he's going, "Oh, those postal votes. Oh dear, I don't know if I trust the postal votes." You're the president of the United States. It's your system, you know what I mean? But he's clearly just getting ready for the fact that it might be a close result. And in that case, he's going to throw lawsuit after lawsuit, come out with statutes or whatever, and try and cling on to it, have recounts and all that stuff. He's gonna go that route, he is. It's got to be a landslide for Biden for him to just leave.
And it kind of there's all kinds of possible outcomes. I do like the thing with the system. I agree with you. I think that's the most interesting aspect of this. I think the unfortunate consequence of it is that we'll all feel it, right? Because it is the United States, as you said. He's the president of the United States. It's the lodestone that the world's global economy hinges around. So what fucking happens there happens every fucking where. Like, it doesn't matter what country you're in. It has if that country goes into any form of mass civil unrest, or it's already going to go into they're already saying it's going to be the biggest depression since it might dwarf the Great Depression. Already it's looking that way, the economic projections, because so many people are out of work. For the long term. And so that's horrific. And I honestly think at the heart of and I'm not saying this is the right answer, but part of it, I think, is that at its heart it's ruthless. Donald Trump is ruthless as fuck. That's clear. He'll do whatever the fuck he wants to get what he wants. And you're right, he's a product. Like, he's the pinnacle of that sort of system. He's brash, he's loud-mouthed, he doesn't give a fuck, say whatever he wants, take what he wants, do all of those things. And with no conscience.
Yeah.
So he is like he's like the ultimate representation of that that's at the heart of that. You know,
Yeah.
they never really capitalized on the. You know, they were seen as the saviors of the world, coming out of the First and Second World Wars, and they capitalized on that. You know, there was a dream there that felt like it was something real, and it never really has paid the dividends that it should have done to most people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they said they were going to spread it around the world, and they didn't even get as far as the people in their own country. Like, there's so many people.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's a shame. I mean, we will see the US as like a metaphor for the whole world, don't we? You know, is that, and it's still got. I think, you know, still has that thing of this new land thing, doesn't it? You know, I mean, US not long ago there were people just packing up their stuff and going forth to California to claim
So
a spot of
fucking soon,
land.
yeah.
You know, the whole that's like a human thing, isn't it? To want to stake your plot on the earth and raise a family and build a house, and America is like a new country in that way. You know, so we do see them as being a beacon, don't we? As a something to look up to, that they could perhaps be better than us. You know, the way the British have been with the empire, and certainly a lot of the Middle East and all the rest of it. America's not bogged down by all that horrible history, but
you say that, but then, you know, the stain of slavery is at the heart of the American story. Like, and yeah, we all fed into it. Like, yeah, I think if you bring up, the thing is that there's a tendency to always bring into conversations like this recent history. Like, it's very easy to make references to the British Empire because it was the last great empire. Like, really, especially in the West, like, you had the Ottoman Empire and things like that were kind of concurrent in time, and Russia could always really have been called an empire in its early Slavic form, Tsarist form, because it essentially was just a collection of countries that were ruled by. So, you know, but the British Empire is the one that always sticks, obviously, in our minds for obvious reasons, because it birthed the US at its height. But, you know, there's never been a kinder empire up until the British Empire, other than the British Empire. Like, at the time when the British Empire was about, it was the best an empire had ever been. It was 100% better than any empire that had come back from it in regards to human rights, in regards to education. You know, it's only worst in comparison to the most recent one. Like, if you just compare the two of those in a microcosm, then it's obviously much worse than the current one. Like, which would potentially be, because since we're client states really of the US, it's really the US empire, right? And so it's, which is better than the British Empire by a long shot, far fucking better, like, objectively, like, but you only need to go back maybe one or two or three, you know, so it's all relative, and we're on a road to, we've always been on a road to progress. You know, in the long term, we will always be on a road to progress. Now, whether this is the fall of the American empire and what comes after it will be better, worse, who knows? But it's probably it's unless, you know, and what, you know, what the founding fathers of the US, basically, it was one of them that said that the Tree of Liberty has to be, what was it? Has to be watered by the blood of civilizations, or whatever it was. Like, there's some quote, you know, if they've got that built into their system enough that it can recover from bounces like this without it turning into civil war, like, that was at the heart of them trying to put the government together, was really to refute that, to say, no, actually we can create a society that can survive the civil war, and you know, we've done that, and we don't have to do it again. Like,
that, you know, they will always be protected from a tyrannical government. I mean, that's at the heart of the US Constitution, isn't it? Is that it hands the power to the people. And
so if something politically rises from the ashes of what's going on at the moment and takes it over and it works, and who knows? But it looks very bleak from here.
Oh, it does. Yeah, I don't know where I mean, Joe Biden is not the answer to these problems. And I think I think Joe would probably, if he was being truthful, would be the fucking first to tell you that.
If he could remember it.
If he could stay awake for 5 minutes. Yeah, I know. Oh, poor old Sleepy Joe. But no, he's not. He's clearly not. He's not the
He's not the
white
guy
knight here. No,
he's not the guy.
He'll just be the guy to manage it for a few years and try and build up faith.
Maybe he might not even get a few years in.
No, like, I mean, I mean, it might end up with her being president.
Well, yeah, I mean, all the way through the Trump presidency, they talked about removing him because of cognitive decline. Like, there's Article 25 of the Constitution or something like that allows them to.
I'm sure they've thought about doing all of them, haven't they, at one point or another? But
well, they've tried to. But if they, like, let's say, for instance, the Democrat. I mean, there's an off chance. Like, if you were to believe the polls on face values, there's an off chance that the Democrats could end up with a supermajority, right? Mm-hmm. They get the executive, they end up in the Senate, that's a possibility, and they end up with Congress. And if those things happen, and they've got a vote, a supermajority in the Senate, then they can essentially do whatever the fuck they want at that point. So if they wanted to then convene the Council of Elders and say, Joe's lost it, like 6 months into his presidency, it's now Kamala.
Yeah. And don't forget, they're already talking about Trump 2024, aren't they? Because if he loses this one, he can fucking run again. It's an interesting thing that I don't think it's ever happened, has it? But
no.
You do one term, you can come back and run another one. And the other interesting one is it's a bit of a moot point, but as to whether a 2-term president, so say Barack Obama, whether he could be somebody's vice president. So could he be Biden's vice president? Because there's actually nothing in the Constitution to say that he can't be. Only that he cannot be elected to public office, but he could be by the death of a president if he was vice president. So apparently it's a grey area as to what the text means.
So did they? I can't remember, because FDR was president for like 4 terms, wasn't he?
Yeah, before this was brought in, I think, wasn't it around?
Did they that was legislation that was brought in, or is that just an understanding?
It's an amendment. It's an amendment 22, I think. Yeah. So it was changed, and both parties have since tried to change it.
Have they?
Obviously, for their own interest, when they've got a 2-term president that they want to keep on, and it's never. I mean, obviously they can change it if they want.
Well, it's going to go to the courts at this point, doesn't it?
It would have to have huge support, and it's never likely to happen. But I think it's a good system. I think I like the 2-term thing. I think it just stops this. You see in these tin pot dictatorships where these guys cling on for fucking 50 years.
Yeah. The checks and balances in the U.S. system are what I'm talking about. Like there are things, and this is why this is why it's interesting, isn't it? Because they put together that constitution with an eye to the past. Like to say, look, these are all of the mistakes that have happened in the past. We're going to build into this system enough checks and balances and bounce points and ways to sort of move things around that it'll engineer situations that don't lead to tyranny. Constantly, like an ever-moving engine. They obviously never factored in things like social media, and that's a huge thing. And how could they? But there are still all those bits in there.
Yeah.
That could work.
Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of Trump's the anomaly to that, isn't he? He's not a career politician. He's a TV reality millionaire playboy, son of another billionaire, and
but so was Ronald Reagan. So is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I mean, there's people like that rife through politics. It's just whether you end up with an absolute ass like Trump, or you end up with someone who's relatively sensible. Well, I mean, who knows? You can't want that job and be a sensible individual to some extent.
No, I mean there's a lot of quotes, isn't there?
And even if you were at the start of the process, you certainly are not by the time you get to the end.
They're saying it should rule you out, really, from wanting to be president. If that's the job you want, then you're not suited to it, because it's not a job anybody should want. There's a really good Netflix series with Kiefer Sutherland called Designated Survivor. I don't know if you've seen ads for that.
I saw.
Have you seen
season 1? But
okay. So I've been watching that, and it's, you know, an interesting premise or whatever. I don't think it's that good, but I really like Kiefer Sutherland in it. But what I found myself doing was watching that and seeing Kiefer Sutherland as that, you know, decent guy, and he's not a career politician, is he? He's just the guy that's fallen
Yep.
into the role, and seeing him struggle with the moral dilemmas of that job every
Yeah, yeah.
day, and how decent he is, you know, about protests outside the White House, and he'll get the lead protester in to sit down in the Oval Office with him and just talk to them like a human being. And I found myself watching that thinking, what a load of shit, you know, are we supposed to swallow this? You know what I mean? And then I caught myself thinking, Christ alive, James, you know what I mean? What are you trying to say? That, you know, that, and I did, I caught myself thinking, it's Trump. Trump's done that to me, where the fact that an actor on television tries to play a decent US president with a moral code, and you're laughing at it.
So you're saying you would have believed that wholeheartedly during the Obama era?
I would have been a lot more likely to, I think.
And George W. Bush?
Yeah,
I can almost see George W. Bush. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I laughed so much because it's exactly my reaction. Was what you just described. The reason I didn't like that in the end was I was like, this is just wishy-washy shit. There's no fucking way that guy's gonna get that dude off the street. It's not gonna happen. Like, in fact, even if he did, he'd probably get shot. So what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, just trying to think back as to whether or not I would have believed it, you know, whilst it was the Obama presidency.
It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, I think everyone outside the US, he was sort of our president, really. You know, I really loved Obama. I think as someone who's not American, he was amazing because he was such a statesman. Such an orator. I mean, he was just, the way he came across, held himself on the world stage was just incredible. You know, he had a real, you could tell he's a decent man. But having said that, when you read back about his 2-term presidency, there's lots of really nasty shit in there. I mean, he had more drone attacks than any other president on individuals, more women and children killed in the Middle East. I mean, he really leaned on those fucking drones. You know.
Yeah, and he didn't deliver. I mean, he didn't really deliver any of the things he really took. I mean, he talked about hope, but it didn't really. He didn't really deliver, and he lost. I mean, you can make the argument he did have. They had a supermajority for the first 2 years of his presidency, and he didn't do basic things like get rid of the filibuster. You know, there's some very simple things that he said that are mainly tools of the Republican Party to quash legislation, like, you know, and they're really damaging, and they were put in place for specific reasons. He had the opportunity to refute a load of those things. He didn't do any of them, and then he lost his supermajority after the first 2 years. They had a terrible result. They lost the majority in Congress and the Senate. So he was left as essentially a lame duck president.
Yeah. And that's, you know, but he's a figurehead at the end of the day, isn't it?
Oh,
I mean, that job is always going to be there.
More.
You know,
I also, to a certain extent, think as well that you can't really tie what happens during a presidency that much to the president, because there are limits, huge amounts of limits on any control they have over any situation.
Yeah,
they get bombarded with so much stuff constantly.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't realise that until recently. You know, both in fiction and in real life. You know, the way that the individual state governors can really just throw it back at the president and say, no, the people in this state who elected me, and I'm responsible for those people, not you, Mr. President. You know, that kind of rhetoric, which we've seen with COVID. You know, really, I thought he was all powerful. You know, in the US, that he could just mandate what these people do, but it's not the case, is it? I didn't realise that.
And that's part of the problem. And the political system has done a very good job of having everyone's eyes focused on the presidency. It's a massive worldwide event every 4 years, like, and he just it's, you know, it's the typical trick. You know, here's something bright and shiny. Watch that all the time. Criticize it, love it, do whatever you want with it, but just spend your time looking at that, and in the meantime, we'll do all of this other shit. Like, that will affect everyone, but you won't see the effects immediately. So by the time you realise it's happened, it's too late to do anything about, kind of thing. And that's what keeps happening. Like,
God, I'd be fucking losers.
yeah. Are you alright for time? Or I was going to have a wee.
Yeah. I didn't have a cigarette. I just got more wine.
I got myself some soda water, and I'm going to make myself a spritzer.
Nice.
Yeah. I was talking to Mick at on Saturday, I think it was. Just on text. And we'd planned for him to come over this Saturday coming.
Right. Okay.
So just, days after the actual lockdown.
So what are you going to do? Still do it or not?
I don't know. So,
Yeah, no. Rich was, quite vocal about it before when I didn't think it was going to happen, and he was like, "Please promise me, if it does happen, that we'll make an exception and still meet up." Which is it's difficult, isn't it? I don't think I'd have done it first time around.
No, I wouldn't have. I'm pretty sure. Like, maybe towards the end when it started to get a little bit, like, things were getting better. I think I felt a little bit looser about it then. I don't know, you came up at some point, didn't you?
Not during lockdown.
No?
No.
Was it after June?
Yeah.
But we had Emma and the kids here for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah. That was okay by the rules, wasn't it?
Yeah. Kinda.
Yeah, well.
It was a week into it. So it was probably we'd probably missed the starting pistol on at what point you should have been a combined household by about 4 or 5 days, but pretty much.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really have a problem with it. I think Ruth has said she doesn't mind, but I think she's under the impression that he hasn't been working. So I don't know if I've told her that I know that he's had a job.
Right. Yeah.
So he's been out and about, because previously he was just at home. He didn't have a job. He wasn't going out. He hadn't been around anybody with his parents. But he's been rehearsing, and he's been, working day to day and not working from home.
Right. Okay.
So there's all that to sort of factor in. But then, am I really worried about myself, Ruth, and Neve? We're not going to be giving, Neve's not going to go over to Mum and Dad's, obviously, for the entirety of the
Yeah.
lockdown.
Yeah. Got all that again, haven't we? That's just painful.
Yeah, that's not going to happen now. So we've got Neve totally to ourselves for the next month. And school, and all the parents in the playground, of course.
Oh yeah, I did that today. Did the school run? It's a fucking joke. I mean, it's hundreds of us just pouncing down the road to pick up our kids, and they come running out, obviously without masks on, and it's a joke, isn't it? And then all this work stuff is exempt as well. Basically anything that involves making money is okay. So you can go play a round of golf with business people as long as it's a meeting. There's all these exemptions, and they're all geared towards the working world, which I just think is, people are seeing that's more and more unfair.
Yeah. But
the
hospitality industry is closing completely, though. Like, I've spent today, and after we come off this school, I've got to continue to close a restaurant group that I work with. Like, they're got to close their software, all their availability down for them.
Right.
Because it's just blanket ban on everything. Even that they had that business loophole of 6 people could meet up for a business lunch.
Yeah, is that gone then with this lockdown?
Yeah, everything's got to be closed.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fucking brutal, man. Yeah, just the venues in Southampton have just started to sort of. There's live gigs happening down the 1865. The Joiners, I mean, they're pathetic, really. I mean, they're getting full bands on stage, like metal bands, you know, and then where the mosh pit would be, they've got like 3 big tables, you know, tables of 6 that they can fit in.
I see folk making a comeback.
Yeah, it's just you know, they're on their knees anyway, and it's just for the arts. It's such a, it feels like such an attack on that. You know, that there's never really been proper gigs have been allowed throughout all of this since March, and we're now heading into next year. It's really not good, you know. And singers, you know, I know this girl, Hag's partner Amanda. Right. She's a professional singer. I mean, she sings in care homes and on cruise ships and that kind of thing. Does the old, you know, 1950s song and dance numbers, little things like that, you know. And she's had to retrain. She's taken a job, you know, working in a tire fitters or something. You know, I mean, just it's that kind of stuff. I mean, that's big life-changing stuff for people, and
that's huge. Yeah,
I mean, but you can't just disavow it on the fact that it's unfair, because a lot of this is unfair. I mean, pandemics don't pick and choose, do they? But
well, I mean, there are winners, though. I mean, that's the difficult thing, and the thing is that we know them. Like, you know, when, you know, if you lived in a city where the rich and, you know, you'd think everyone was rich that wasn't in your situation. Like, everyone knew who was rich and who wasn't, all of that kind of stuff. But we know how much Jeff Bezos is making.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's obscene.
And it is obscene. Mm-hmm. And there's this huge, you know, there's things, and what's amazing about it is, like, you know, you're talking about Amazon giving back to the community, like, to us, because we're handing them this huge shopping, like, market. But, you know, a fraction of his wealth would be enough to probably solve the homeless problem in the US for the near future. Like, at least for the near future. And if you put a little bit more in, probably for a little longer, you know, it probably wouldn't be too much more. Like, if you created some kind of wealth generating engine out of it indefinitely. Like, you know, there's those kind of things that, like, why aren't people like him doing shit like that with all this money? Yeah. You know, that's the idea behind capitalism, right? Is that these, to a certain extent, that we create these wealth engines and they drive wealth back into the community.
Yeah, I know, like, and there's that basic fact that billionaires are not good for the economy. They hoard money. They take more money out of the economy than they put in. Trump again on his rally. I mean, he's sitting there going, whipping the crowd into a frenzy, telling them how Joe Biden wants to raise your taxes. He wants to raise your taxes, blah, blah, blah. And that's not what I'm going to do. I'm all about getting rid of restrictions. But it's a lie. I mean, Joe Biden's tax pledge is that he's going to lower taxes for 95% of Americans. It's the top 5% that are going to get a tax increase, you know? It's a lie.
It's an even worse lie, because because of the structure of the tax break that Donald Trump did do, the one and only thing he did throughout his presidency was a tax break back in the first 2 years. That gave nothing but money to the rich. Like, it affected the general populace for like a quarter or 2 quarters of the year. And then all of that disappeared, and all the rest of it went to the corporations. Yeah. So not only is it a lie that he's lying about Joe Biden's tax record, but in historically, he did a tax break that benefited all of including himself, all of the rich and himself. It's the hypocrisy is just unbelievable. No wonder you don't believe Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it seems a fanciful idea, doesn't it? It really does. Yeah, this guy that's like, you know, when he's sitting with his advisors and they're saying, well, you should really do this because the optics, Mr. President, play out very badly. And he's like, no. I don't care about the optics. I care about the American people, you know? And it's that kind of, you're like, really? Yeah. You know, it just comes across as false because we've had to live in this world for the last 4 years, and we know it ain't so, and it's very hard to swallow the idea
Well, just
of even
look back.
a fictional president.
If Obama was anything, he was like the black version of Harrison Ford's president from Air Force One. Remember that film?
Yes.
I believed, I think at the time, that if Obama ever got himself caught in that kind of situation, he would be able to do what Harrison Ford did in that movie. He could be the statesman, he could be all of those things, and he would kick everyone's ass, like if he needed to, and he'd save the day. And it's just,
it's fucked up. But we'll see. It'll be a very interesting few days, won't it, man? Watching those states come in and seeing which way it's going is going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, I'm putting my holiday request in today.
Right. Well, by Wednesday. It'd be Wednesday or possibly Thursday, right?
So, well, the result. I mean, I think
depends how close it is, I suppose.
Florida closes at 8 p.m. I think it's one of the first states to close.
Right.
And so 8 p.m. Eastern is, I can't remember they're 5 hours behind. So 8 p.m. Eastern is like 1 a.m. something like that, is it?
I don't know.
We should be able to work this out, surely.
Florida's 8 hours behind?
Well, New York.
New York's 5.
I can look at Google.
New York's definitely 5 hours ahead of us.
Is it ahead?
Behind. Sorry, it's behind. Yeah. Definitely 5 hours behind. I think Florida is the same as California, which is 8 behind.
No, it's not. Florida's on the East Coast.
Oh, okay. I don't know then.
Florida's on the bottom of the East Coast. So I can't remember if it's it's 1 a.m.
Right.
So Florida will close at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern. So what I'm thinking is I'll take. Maybe I should. I want to try and I kind of want to go to sleep early enough that I'll wake up at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. And come downstairs at that point and turn the TVs on.
Yeah.
And see what the fuck is going on.
I remember last time I didn't want to know because it was after the Brexit thing, wasn't it, that Trump came in?
Yeah.
And it was so like the Brexit result had already woken up to that before, checked my phone and just like, oh, fuck me, dead. So the Trump thing, I remember getting up in the morning and I was working with my dad just down the road in Hamble, that little office.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't check my phone. I thought, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I really hope he hasn't won. And then got into the office and sat down. I was like, we're going to fucking find out at some point anyways. I just checked my phone. Oh, fucking hell. Just can't believe it. It felt like a double whammy, Brexit and Trump. And then we got the same thing this year. We got the same thing this year, man. We got Trump, possibly might win a second term. And then you got Brexit again.
Oh.
At the end of it, it's like people think, oh, it's sorted, isn't it? It's like, no, it's fucking not.
Yeah. Where are they with it? There's a... When is the actual date again?
Well, it's all a bit wishy-washy, isn't it? It's the end of the year, though. Certainly by the end of December, it's going to be... It will be clear whether or not it's deal or no deal. But, of course, presupposing that he doesn't extend it again or whatever, which I think will be massively tempting for him. But he can't do it, can he? He can't extend again, not after all his pledges. I wouldn't rule anything out at this point. But
no, I think I said there's a guy like 2 years after the Brexit result, sort of halfway through this of Donald Trump's term, had said that he was a guest on Question Time. I can't remember his name right now, but he'd said that the interim always becomes the reality. Like in most of these situations, you'll find an interim state that's agreed on by everyone. No one wants to take the final step, so everyone agrees on an interim state that will, let us sort of finalise the process. And generally what happens is that interim state tends to turn out to be what actually ends up holding and becoming reality after time. So I wouldn't be surprised if he extends that again. It's another way to kick the can down the road. Just keep things rolling on while this whole crisis is going on.
Well, it's possibly the most sensible thing to do at this point, but I just having campaigned and got elected. But having said that, he had the deal, right? He had, the basic components of the deal, and that was the bit that got him over the line, wasn't it? Because he had his oven-ready baked deal, which didn't have the detail, but it had the basic tenets of the agreement, and that's what got him elected, and that's what we all voted on, was the fact that he had this. And then what they've done recently is they've tried to renegotiate the terms of that deal, which is actually illegal. I mean, it's against international law to.
So who's this? The EU?
No, but the British. I mean, that's what Boris has gone back in and tried to renegotiate those terms, and they've said no, not a second. You can't do that. See what happens. But there's no deal. There's no, they keep meeting, don't they? They've been doing it on fucking Zoom calls throughout the summer, and there's no progress. I mean, I don't think they're any closer than they were before, because this massive you're back to that same thing. We want freedom of goods and free movement of services and money, but we don't want the people. And they're saying, well, that's the three pillars of the EU. We can't move on that, because if we allow you to have it, we'd have to allow everyone else to have it, and everyone would want to renegotiate their deals. So they'll stick firm. I'm sure they will. And all we've got to sell is, the NHS potentially.
I don't know. There's a lot more to the UK economy than just the NHS for.
Oh yeah, sure. But I mean, in terms of setting up trade deals with other countries, I mean, it's always been a fanciful notion, that we can get that.
Well, I mean, they have to be done. There's not a question of whether they will be. They'll have to be done at some point.
They have to be done, yeah. But they take years. I mean, some of these things have taken 10 years with just individual countries, to agree. So that it's only the short term. I mean, I think in the long term it will pan out. Things will settle, but.
I mean, I'm certainly not someone who ever supported it, but it is gonna, like you say, gonna happen. And it is weird, like, who knows in this kind of with the current need of economies to have lifelines to wealth. Well, fucking the UK is a lifeline to a lot of wealth. Like, we'll have to see how quickly people fucking move, but I don't know how that's gonna play. We've got all that coming as well on top of all this other shit, and they just, certainly in the short term, I think come 1st of January, if it is a no deal thing, we are going to have goods that aren't available in the short term, stockpiles of certain things. Do you think so?
I almost certainly, It's like inevitable that will happen, because it just falls apart overnight. If it was 31st of December. And suddenly 1st of January you wake up and there's no agreements on tariffs or importation of goods or whatever, which there wouldn't be in a no-deal situation, then short term there would be issues.
Right. So so literally trucks just stopped at the ports.
Yeah. It's going to be a shit show.
What's your dad's? I'm interested for once in my life. I'm interested in what your dad's opinion of this is. Well, no, actually, that's not true. I'm generally interested. Normally, it's just because I want to laugh.
Comedy value, yeah.
But at this point, like, what is his view? Does he think they'll get it done?
I don't think he's not worried about a no deal. So he thinks what the British are doing is basically what any big company does in any negotiation, which is not to show your hand, to just keep peddling around and bouncing stuff back and forth, and then eventually it'll all come together in the last sort of 5 minutes. It's something that will be sewn together. But he's not worried about the no deal thing. He has this view that business will always prevail, and common sense will prevail. So where there are medicines or whatever, that they will just find a way and just get it done. But I don't think he's thinking of it as simply a business negotiation. And of course it's not. There's an awful lot of people involved in this as well. And where they all end up, it depends where you are when the music stops. It's like musical chairs, isn't it? I mean, if you're retired and you've got a pension and you've got money in the bank, then yeah, sure. Yeah. You might be short. You might not be able to buy lettuce for 1 week, or, you know, there will be access to things with people with the money for it. But again, same as the pandemic. It's always going to be the people with least that are hit hardest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he doesn't know. He's optimistic. He thinks it's going to be good, but he's jumped ship, right? Because he voted to remain. So now he's like, yeah, no, I would have voted to leave if I could vote again. Because he just always backs the winning horse.
And how is he justifying the change of mind? Was he just badly informed prior to, and knowing what he knows now, he'd change his vote, or is he just decided that
he's just come around to that way of thinking? Just, you know, that's what the British people voted for. So yeah, let's get on with it.
But going back and saying I get that. Like, I'm kind of in that place now. I'm kind of like, well, it's got to get done. So however we can get it done, we've got to get it done. So I'm with you on that. But going and saying if he would vote, but saying if he could vote again, he would vote for it. Like, how does he justify? Does he think that what's happened since has been good? Like,
I guess
the effects of Brexit have been awesome. If I'd known what was going to happen, I would have voted this way the first time.
Yeah. He's probably the only one in that camp, I think, in the whole country that's been swayed by the fucking mess of information that we've had since the election result. That actually, looking at all of that in the round,
he's
I think we should have fucking done it anyway.
He's a genius.
He doesn't want to be on the wrong side of history, Kev. I think that's the message I'm getting from him.
He thinks he's in history, does he?
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah. That's a nice conceit to have.
Yeah. But I just really want to get through these next few months. I mean, I think we'll get to January and see what happens. But you know, we've been lucky so far. You know, I haven't dropped a penny in salary. I've done the same job all the way through. I now get up and have a nice, comfy, warm office that I work in without any hectic idiots nearby me, and just crack on with my day. So my life is better now. You know, it is better.
Yeah.
I don't have any of the petty frustrations that I had before. It's, you know, I'm in a much better place, but I am the lucky one. You know, it's not like that for everybody else. So it's it's a total calamity. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Trump could well win, couldn't he? He could win. I don't think anyone would
win.
Yeah,
there's a path, and that's why I'm thinking 4 a.m. cup of tea, spliff. What the fuck is going on? And no work. I think I might have to work Wednesday afternoon, but no work certainly for the first. So I can just shut everything off and watch what's going on and get a view of it. But
there'll be this, if it's close and it comes down to those 2 or 3 swing states or whatever, and they go Biden's way, but it's close, it gets really down to the line, so you find out really, really late. I reckon there'll be no, you know, because the losing party generally at some point, like Hillary did, you know, they see the numbers, they know they've lost, so at like 5 in the morning she'll come out, she'll concede and say well done, blah blah blah. Trump won't do that, and there'll be this silence, this massive.
He can. See, in this election he can.
What, concede?
He can't concede because there won't be enough votes counted at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
So let's put it this way: if I wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and Florida has gone to Biden, I might very well at that point go back to bed, have my spliff, and go back to bed. It's possible that if Biden wins Florida, Trump's done. because he needs the electoral college votes of Florida to take him over the line, regardless of what else goes on. If it gets if it gets to the point that something like Philadelphia has not declared or will not declare, if it comes down to the point where Philadelphia is the one that needs to take either or over the line, right? You're talking about these numbers. Like, Hillary knew she was done when, like, can't remember exactly which state, but it was something like Wisconsin. Like, came over the line, Hillary knew she was done. Yeah. Philadelphia looks like that state for Trump this year. Like, if Philadelphia comes over the line, Trump may win. Even if he loses big elsewhere, he may still win. Yeah. They're one of the states that can't count their votes until the postal votes, until all the day votes are in. And so that result could be delayed by 2 or 3 days. So Trump would not concede. I got it mixed up earlier on. If if Pennsylvania comes over the line for Biden, if that's the last state he needs to win. Yeah. Then Trump, at that point, if he won it, Trump would have to concede on the night. Wouldn't have any choice. It would be done. Yeah. But would he? If Pennsylvania doesn't come in until Wednesday, and that's the state that you're relying on, then Trump can't say on the night that he's conceding. That's where the issue lies. Because I think if the colours are as black as white as that, if it comes down to Pennsylvania and if Biden wins Pennsylvania, Trump is done, you will have to concede. There won't be any choice. That's my fear, is that he won't. And that, at that point in an election where, say, Biden's already come out and done his winning speech at a massive rally and everyone's cheering and he's looking knackered and hugging his wife and whatever, and President Biden 4 more years, and then all eyes in the world are on the White House for Trump's concession speech, and it doesn't come, and it doesn't come, and it doesn't come, and you get hours and hours and hours of this darkness, and then all of a sudden he will come out and stand in front of the that podium again, and that's when he will deliver what could be the most dangerous speech he's ever given, which could be along the lines of, look, I'm the president of the United States. I've told you all along that these postal votes are dangerous and illegal, and I believe that the American people's vote have been taken from them by Biden, probably supported by the Russians, probably supported by whoever else, and I'm making a stand. So I'm telling you right now, I'm putting into force this blah, blah, blah proclamation that there will be a recount and an investigation, and while that goes on, I will remain the president of the United States. Something along those lines. It's not beyond Trump to try a fucking move like that, is it? Never been done before. I don't know. It's happened before, and recently. So it happened when Al Gore and W.H. Bush. Was it his first term or second term? I think it was his second term, and the result from Florida was delayed by like 3 days. Right. And what ended up happening is both candidates ended up giving a winning speech, and then it went to the Supreme Court, and it was sorted out within a couple of weeks. Okay. So that's the precedent for a situation like that. The difference here, and I think the opportunity, what you're describing, is basically Trump taking an opportunistic moment in American politics that has never happened before, and doing something outstanding. The precedent for this current situation has never fucking happened before, where you may have states like Pennsylvania hanging on before declaring their results for like 3 days, right? Because always you would have results declared, really, to some extent, and it would be 99% of the board. You end up with one, Florida or something. In this situation, you could end up with a dozen, still on the board. So at that point, there is because then if he's relying on mail-in votes, if that's where the Democratic majority is going to come from, and Trump looks like he's winning because those Democratic states haven't come in yet, that's the situation you're describing. Because at that point, he can say, well, look, I've won. I'm on, I'm the biggest thing on the board at this point in time. Any mail-in votes, we can discard them because we know they're false.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
and the Democrats are arguing that they should be taken into account because they will make them win, and that's their conspiracy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's possible. Like, it is. I don't think it will happen. If that is what's gonna, if something like that did happen, I don't think it could happen on Wednesday. Sorry, on Tuesday night. It could happen sort of 2 or 3 days later down the line, or a day later.
Yeah.
But it would be an extraordinary situation. Like, that would be. And
Oh,
whether or
yeah.
not he's got the organisation, I don't know. Who knows? Like,
Who knows? But you hear more and more of this stuff that he feels like he's protected, like he's got immunity from prosecution by being the president, right? He's mentioned that on several occasions that, there's all this stuff we're hearing about his taxes and him getting sued and all the rest of it. He's protected by being president. So there's a real thing for him that, people are saying if he loses, there's a real chance that the guy could go to fucking jail. It could happen within a couple of years of him losing the presidency.
There's an interesting thing. There's maybe an interesting way to think about this as well, though, because is he just the person who says that? Do all people in those positions feel like that, but don't say it? And he's dangerous because he says it?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it's a bit of a grey
area. Does it matter then that he says it? Do we all just believe they think that anyway? And does it then matter if he says it?
Well, no. I mean, he says that, but he also says that there's no prosecutions coming for him. I mean,
but they always capitulate in those situations. Like they always capitulate. So if George W. Bush was thinking about that, and Al Gore was thinking about it in the other situation, because they both declared themselves winners, but when the Supreme Court result came through, they capitulated. Just because he says it. Like, this is always the thing, like, with objective truth with Trump. Just because he says it, does he really believe it?
Yeah, I'm sure.
And if they don't say it, do they not believe it? Like, so I don't know. Like, does he really want to be the dictator of the United States of America? I don't know. Like, I don't know if you could say that, because that would be essentially what he was declaring himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he would say he's the people's champion or whatever.
Fuck the Constitution. I'm your king.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's essentially what we know what happened to Caesar.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, that seems what he was doing, but...
Well, most people would step aside in that situation because the damage it was going to do to the country that they claim to love, I mean, that's why people don't embroil themselves in that, because it's not about personal ambition. It's never supposed to have been about personal ambition. It's about the high office, about the opportunity to serve, right? And I think we all know that's not quite how Trump feels about that job.
No, but what level of cynicism are we? What percentage of people in those roles do we think do care?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and how much do we believe in our political systems anymore? Because then if we're still erring towards, I kind of feel like there's probably a 75-25% mix. There's some grifters in there, and then there's probably 75 of people in there are in there genuinely because they want to be doing stuff. They may be compromised though. And there's probably about 10% that are just fucking out there warriors. Like, Joe Biden's a perfect example of someone who probably sits in the middle of that, right? He's probably in it to do stuff, and he thinks he's probably being a champion of the people in some respects, and he's trying to do some things, but he flip-flops all the fucking time, and he wavers here and there. And then you've got, Bernie Sanders is in that, like, 10% of that political class that's just like, I am fucking trying to do an important job. I don't care about money. I don't care about fuck all. What I want is what I want, and because it's good for the fucking people. Like,
yeah. But that makes him an exception, I think. I mean, you talk about that 75-25, I don't know. But, I mean, if you were if you were a US senator and you go for a big lunch with a load of other US senators and you're sitting around the table and they're talking about, God knows what.
They're just fucking people, right?
But they are but I mean, there's too much at stake for them. There's too much money and
Yeah, I mean, valid. Like, and this is this fit, like, there's this, like, we need government. We need government. Society can't function without some form of government, some form of regulation.
Referendums don't work, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. We know that in this country more than anywhere in the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at our fucking history, right? We were run as a corporation for so fucking long. You were speaking about the British Empire. It's what we turned Britain into, a corporation. Like, the Industrial Revolution was the rallying call of the masses to this industrial project that made Britain an organisation, a corporation that spread shit across. Like, it's what we did. But sorry, I've lost my point. What was the last thing you said?
Senators sitting around a table, whether you could
right,
sit there and could you be a Boy Scout in that kind of situation? Would that be naive to sit there at that lunch or whatever in the Hilton in some posh hotel or whatever, where they're all talking about trade deals between different states, for you to say, oh, whoa, hold on, guys. I think we've perhaps all lost sight of the fact that we're supposed to be serving the average American person, and that's what we love, is this country and the people in it, right? I mean, would you just get like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well,
when you're a Boy Scout, where did you grow up? You're being hopelessly naive. That's not how it works. As politics is a game, and it's a game you play or you get crushed, right?
I don't think you get. Yeah, I don't know. That would be such a brave. You're right. There's so much at stake. You'd have to be such a brave fucking individual.
Well, and there are examples, right? There's Jeremy Corbyn, there's Bernie Sanders, right? And those guys have got crushed under the wheels. Because they've tried to be...
I don't know how much I believe... I wouldn't put Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn in the same bracket, frankly.
Well, not maybe entirely politically, but in terms of honesty, decency. That kind of... They're whiter than white. They can't be smeared. Like, there's nothing in their histories, really, that can be brought out into the sunshine to say, look, they're just the same as the rest of them. He's taken bribes, he's done this and that.
I think they are. I mean, Sanders is definitely compromised by his endorsement of Joe Biden and by his eventual endorsement of Hillary Clinton. I mean, he bowed to the DNC when he, potentially could have fought a revolution within that organisation and pushed it harder, and he chose not to. So I think he's definitely compromised there. And I would say Corbyn's definitely compromised. I suppose I see the biggest difference. I don't see Jeremy Corbyn as a leader. I see Bernie Sanders as someone who could potentially lead. I've seen Corbyn not only fail to really campaign as a leader and win nevertheless, but then also fail to lead once he was there. And nothing, not any one particular thing that I thought he failed on. Just generally, he didn't provide for me a voice that I would listen to and think, he failed for me as someone, as a politician. Like, when he got to the point where he had something to do, I believe, like you, that he had all of the right intentions and he's an honest individual trying to do something good.
Perhaps the only one.
I don't know if he's the only one.
But in British politics at the time?
No, I don't.
Even now?
I don't think you would be true to him or anyone else if you said that. Jeremy Corbyn is not pure in any respects at all.
No, I think he is. I think he's a pure...
No, there's no such person, surely. Like, no one's essentially pure.
There's no, there's no evil in him whatsoever. But he is pure of intention, I think, and solid. I mean, he's always used to. I mean, it's one of his big problems.
Name me one achievement, James, other than becoming the opposition leader of the Labour Party. Name me one other achievement.
of just constantly being on the right side
No, no, no.
of
One
arguments.
achievement. What?
Well,
Maybe
he's been
one
always been
event
in
that has been
opposition.
seismic in Jeremy Corbyn's career and has made a difference to British society.
Well, he's never been in power, has he? So he doesn't have that.
That's
for
not
him,
true.
which
He
is-
was leader of the opposition. He participated in the general election. That was his opportunity to become the leader of the country.
To
And tell me
become the
how he
leader,
did that
yeah.
well. Like,
Yeah, well, no, but when you're talking about that, you're talking about campaigning, aren't you? You're about being a political animal, of bringing in people that perhaps don't agree with you and don't want you to be leader, and
Right,
bringing them
and-
on side. All
Yeah,
of which is
which
political
is a
games
leader.
and dinners and promises of things
well, no,
down
it
the
doesn't.
line.
It doesn't.
You know?
I don't know. I don't care how you define it. I don't care what steps you have to do to get there. If you want to be
Well,
inspiring,
that's a big statement.
no. It's up to him as a leader to decide what breaks the line and what doesn't. And I trust him to do the right thing. But whatever you have to do to get there, do it and get there, right? And I trust you in your standing. And there are people in history who have done that, who've been able to cross that line. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is Jeremy Corbyn was not that. He was not that kind of thing.
No,
He was something else. And I
refused
respect
to play
him for
those
whatever
games.
Whatever he is, I respect him for that. But
Yep.
he was not that. And I do think, to a certain extent, Bernie Sanders fails in the same way. But I see Bernie Sanders, on a slightly higher sort of bracket of that in his failure, I suppose, just simply because he's a better speaker and more forceful in his delivery.
He's definitely a better speaker. Yeah.
So that's the only thing those are the only two things that really separate them from me, I suppose. Like, but
yeah, but I mean, Boris. No one in his own party wanted Boris to be prime minister, right?
No, but the difference there is that Boris really did.
Oh, Boris really did, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he refused to run when he was up against Gove the time before, and he pulled out because he saw it coming down the tube. He saw that Theresa May was going to get the poison chalice, and he was like, I don't want to drink from that cup. So he pulled out.
Yep.
And then when everyone in his party didn't want him to become prime minister, he's gone round and he's intimidated people. He's made promises to individual politicians like, you fucking get behind me and I'll make you Secretary of State or whatever down the line, made all those promises. And that's where I think people like Corbyn come undone, because they're not those kind of animals. And you're back to the thing about the respect to the office again, aren't you? I mean, if what you've got to do to get to high office is immoral or compromises you as a human being, then what is the point in having those high offices, Because the kind of animals that get there are not the kind of people you want to represent us, and that's a fundamental, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's disturbing that popularity contest is what actually drives things eventually. And it is, I think, that idea that politics has to a certain extent become a very easy way, distract and do something else, like all of the time. Like we focus so much. But, with Boris, it's like if you could put Boris and Corbyn together and create one individual out of the two of them, I wouldn't be too unhappy with that. Like someone who's willing to be kind of, when they want to put people in line to do it, but to be doing it for exactly the right things. And that's such a hard. I mean, who falls? It's such a rare individual. You were saying like Obama. Maybe it's the three of them. Obama,
three-way splice.
Corbyn and Boris, whatever mix it is, but that's such a hard fucking mix, right? Who's that? No one's that.
Yeah, no, I know. You almost want someone who's Jekyll and Hyde, who can put on a magic helmet that makes them do all these dirty underhand things, and then they instantly forget about it, so they don't know that they've been compromised.
They're still
still pure of heart.
Yeah.
It's it's not. I do get sick and tired of people that I meet sometimes that say, oh, this pandemic and blah blah blah, and the state the country's in. Imagine how bad it would have been if Corbyn got in. You know, you're like, dude, like, he didn't get in. It's the fucking Tories that have done this. So, you know, I mean, I think those people are just are so blinkered that they would have to have lava fucking flowing across their front doorsteps, you know, and they'd still be saying, "Oh, it would have been worse under Corbyn." It's this
It
perception
probably
of
would
the
have
man.
been much the same. You know, that's the sad truth, isn't it? At the point like where Boris ended up coming into power, he's basically just had to do what he's had to do. Corbyn would have been in the same position. He would have had to do what he had to do. Wouldn't have been any different, really.
I don't believe that. I do think he would have, you know, I think he would have thought about people first, and
What do you mean?
long-term economic stuff second. So, you know, I think where Boris has been pulled and pushed into doing things, Corbyn would have been right there.
Like doing what though?
But just more support for people, you know. I mean, I know that we're in the hole in terms of the economy at the moment with borrowing and all the rest of it, but I do think he would have done more and been a lot more visible out there doing it, you know. I mean, that's always been the thing with Corbyn, you know, like this anti-Semitism thing. It just does grate on me. I don't think he handled that well. I think there obviously were things within the party, but this is a guy that's been campaigning anti-racism for his entire career, and not just standing on podiums giving speeches. He's right there in the crowd with people, meeting people, you know, cares. And that's not fake. That's not his angle. It is who he is. Now, whether that makes him a good leader, no.
Well, again, I think it's another example of him not filling the adequate shoe. Because I believe you, like and I believe him. I don't think there's any, animus in him towards anyone of any kind of descent from fucking anywhere. Like there isn't for 99% of most fucking people that I meet day to day. Like,
yeah,
you know. Yeah. So like, yeah, I believe that. The anti-Semitism thing. I suppose the thing that he would have been. I suppose what I mean about the difference of what he would have been able to do is that he would have been advised by exactly the same people as Boris Johnson is being advised by.
Yeah, almost certainly.
And yes, the cabinet would be very different, and obviously he's a different person. But yeah, I don't know. And like, I think if you defined what you mean by he would have done more a little better, then I'd know what you meant. But I don't like. I struggle to think how, like, what's. I don't know what's wrong and right about the approach that's been taken. I suppose like I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure, and I just mean that I don't.
Yeah. I mean, who could have predicted what happened? It's not a normal run of government, is
like,
it?
When was the election? It was December.
Yeah,
December, right? Yeah. December 3rd or something like that.
Yeah.
And then by March we were.
Yeah, we were locked down by March.
We were thinking about it, weren't we?
Yeah, but that was not obviously what was supposed to happen. So who knows?
Yeah.
You know, under normal times, how that would have fared. Yeah, we'll never know the answer to that.
No, and there's all kinds of what ifs. One of the things I remember saying after the election was that, you know, I didn't vote Conservative, but I was kind of like, well, it's fucking done. Like, the result's I'm not happy with the fucking result by any means, but the result is what it is. Like, I did kind of think at the time that, you know, he now has all of these MPs from all of these areas that the Tories have never ever represented before. And what kind of challenge is that going to end up becoming for the Conservative Party to deal with? And will that change things? Because there's been this massive mandate given to all of these MPs in Parliament now by these constituencies that have suddenly flipped from Corbyn to Labour. Corbyn to Conservative. but at their hearts, like the heart of their issues, are exactly the thing that Corbyn represented. So now the Tory party have got to kind of take into consideration Corbyn more than they ever did. Then he was part of the Labour Party, like, because now suddenly what he weirdly represented as part of an intellectual elite in London, like, you know, coming out of those coal miner strikes in the 80s and all of that stuff. Weirdly, from the heart of London, he represented this kind of huge swathe of the north and all of these ideals. Suddenly, they're all in the Conservative Party. Like, so that was the dynamic that I was hoping was going to play out, and then obviously totally derailed.
Yeah. But it wasn't, you know, the election wasn't a normal election either, was it? It was a Brexit election.
Exactly.
So although the odd politician would talk about schooling and, you know, the NHS and stuff, it wasn't what we were interested in. It was basically down to how they were going to handle Brexit. And Corbyn was wishy-washy on that, you know.
Yeah.
He's been a Leaver his whole life, then he was a Remainer. He wasn't really sure, couldn't unify his party behind it.
Well, you just said though that he was a man of his convictions. Yes. And so if he, I don't think he, and I kind of believe you. I don't think he was very slippery on it. He may have, and he was represented in the press a couple of times as being someone who would have switched to Remain, but he never came out and said it himself. Yeah. So
that was difficult. Yeah. And it was the only issue, wasn't it? It was the only thing.
No,
so.
For me, it wasn't. The issue was really him as a leader. And I have this discussion with Ruth often, and I know it's not. She often takes it as being like I dislike Jeremy Corbyn or I disagree with his ideals. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's just I didn't think. I was unsure at the start of his leadership, and it was only confirmed to me after the campaigning and his poor showing during his time in opposition that made me feel like he shouldn't.
He wasn't a strong
be the Prime
leader.
Minister. Now, saying that, I voted for him. I voted for him. Like, so I'm not a man of my convictions, right? So I flip-flopped. I voted for him because I would, you know, never in my life have I ever voted Tory or, you know, I voted Liberal Democrat before, but I felt like there was no point voting Liberal Democrat. For the most part, I voted Liberal Democrat, or Labour, like one of those two. But I didn't, you know. By what I've just said, I should have probably voted Tory, right? If I was a man of my convictions, I'd be like, he's not fit to lead, but I didn't. I voted Labour because that's where I err. But there are legitimate criticisms to be said of Jeremy Corbyn that I think have nothing to do with his ideals, or his morals, or his ethics, or anyone else's, frankly. Like, it have to do with his qualities as an individual.
But even the stuff he does badly, I respect him for. You know, when he came out in opposition, and he was like, "I'm not going to engage in the politics of slander, so I'm not going to dig into people." And it reminded him of me when I was at school. I remember being 15 at school and reading about pacifism somewhere in a newspaper, and I was like, "I like this. This is for me. I'm a man of peace." So I remember going into school and saying, "I'm a pacifist. And I've never had so many fucking dead arms in my life," because all my mates realised the only thing they took from that is that they could punch me in the arm and I wouldn't hit them back. So it was just, James is a pacifist, pass it on. And I think that Corbyn suffered from some of that as well. You know, he was getting dead arms from all over the House of Commons.
And so,
and he wouldn't hit
what
back.
lesson did you take from that?
From my own experience.
Yes. That you should try it again over and over? Or maybe that's not a great strategy.
Keep your politics to yourself. That's what I took from it. Yeah, don't tell people shit, Kev.
So you didn't think... So you didn't come... So your reaction was, that's not a good game, I should play a different one. Your reaction was, I shouldn't play any games at all.
Yeah. I mean, rather... I mean, I could go the other way and just like come out and tell people that I'm a fucking badass murderer and I killed a guy this morning.
Yeah,
Because that's how you stop people giving you dead arms.
I think eventually both lies will be proven true, but probably it would take. I'm not sure which one would take longer. Ultimately, I don't think you're a pacifist, though.
No, not now. Not after that experience. No.
No.
I killed all those guys afterwards, by the way.
Right, so you did learn the lesson.
Yeah, it's a nice ending to that story. But yeah, I you know, in UK politics, you cannot stand up in the House of Commons and not have that killer instinct to take down.
You can't stand up in a classroom, James. So why do you think it would be different in Parliament?
Well, yeah, sure. Well, yeah,
it is a true. It's supposed to be a true reflection of our society. That's the point behind it. I mean, you know, I think the problem we have as a society is that we don't engage in our democracy as much as we should do, in some respects, and we focus on the wrong things when we do. Like we tend to look at the small frame items rather than looking at broad frame items, and you know, we don't consider history, and we don't consider lessons that were learned. We tend to focus on personalities, and
we do.
Again, it all comes down to similar issues as we've talked about this whole time. Like,
yeah, and perhaps we want, you know, perhaps we don't want good people as leaders. Perhaps we want leaders who are willing to do the things that we're not willing to do, and perhaps we don't want to know about to get the job done to keep us safe in our homes. I mean, maybe that's the message from the last 5 years, you know.
You want competence.
Yeah, I mean, if as a politician, if you come up with an idea that's a good, you know, say you want to give free meals to kids at school, right? You come up with that as a premise. It's not enough to come up with that idea and have a really decent policy of how it's going to happen. It's not enough. You can't just roll that out and expect it to happen. You have to go behind the scenes and start talking to people and promising them things down the line to get that deal across the line, to be able to do whatever it fucking takes to get to that end goal, to get those kids fed. But along the way, you compromise yourself to do it. That's, I guess, the kind of person that we want to run the country, not some Boy Scout who's not willing to do those things and ultimately have that deal fail.
Yeah.
It's a conundrum, isn't it?
It is a conundrum. I do, you know, there are some things that I like the participation of the community in local government, for instance. Like how is politics, I suppose if you were looking at politics, like how is politics supposed to work? Or democracy in the form we have it now. How is it's supposed to be the willing participation of individual citizens who are informed about their own situations and they understand them well enough to comment in a dialogue that our whole society is having at once, and the people involved in those conversations rise up through the ranks of those conversations because they're able to distill all of that into a role that makes them a leader. But essentially what makes them a leader is the upsurge of ideas from the populace coalescing around someone who can then represent them in another larger form, and it's a microcosm of all of that going on over the whole country. And again, it goes back to this idea, like we don't have an informed citizenry, and therefore we don't have an informed democracy. Like that's a kind of, it's a fundamental of the system if you were to take the American model. It can, I suppose, and I don't know enough to say it directly applies to ours, but it feels like the right concept. That's how we are more, like we're more intelligent together rather than apart, working as a society together to come up with shit. I mean, that's what democracy is supposed to do, coupled with capitalism, which is supposed to give wealth to everyone. Yeah. And there are fuck ups in that somewhere. Really hard to identify, but I think at the heart of it, that idea that everyone knows something about themselves and the world around them, it has to be key. Yeah. It's a shit show. It's all going to play out over the next few days, and then the next 2 months.
And when we're sitting here having this conversation in January, we will know an awful fucking lot more
We will.
about the direction of the world than we do now. That's for certain.
That's true. That's true. Well, look, it's pretty late.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been wide ranging and in depth.
Fucking has, man. I've really enjoyed it.
And I really need to buy a mixer, man, as well. I meant to talk more about that. I need a mixer.
Well, okay.
There's a Behringer one where the little faders move up and down, like they're motorized.
Okay.
One of those.
Send me the link.
£250. Okay.
How much?
255 quid, I think it is.
Okay.
Behringer
And is it
X Touch Compact.
X Touch Compact? I can probably remember that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have a look.
Yeah.
And yes, album.
Yes.
So there's two things to talk about more.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, well, whether it's in person or we do this again, really. I suppose we can. No, we can meet at a pub. We can meet at a park.
We can, as long as we're doing some kind of sporting activity. I believe we'd have to do some fast-paced walking.
Or hacky sack.
Hacky sack, yeah. Oh, we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. I mean, yeah, but I'm definitely not opposed to you coming down and crashing over for the night. And you just got to watch your neighbours, I suppose, is the thing, isn't it? It's getting fucking ratted out.
Yeah, let's see if we go into that kind of police state. Well, no, we don't know things are really going to go wrong when Rich turns against you in 3 months and rats you out for having me over the house and you haven't been over there or something.
That's right. That's how it plays out. Yeah. I keep saying the cat, we should just have Christmas dinner, right? All 12 of us or whatever it is, the whole family, and just have Christmas dinner. Because the police, you imagine Christmas Day, eating Christmas dinner, and the police knock on the door and they're grabbing Freddie and pulling him away from the family, all screaming. And my nan's lying on the floor having a heart attack, just like, no, don't take my children, it's Christmas. Oh, no. Police state, they're not going to go. They're not going to go that route, Kev.
I don't think they are.
No, a lot of people are just going to have massive family Christmas dinners, and I don't think there's any legislation in the world that's going to stop that from happening.
No, only fear, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, that's how to rule people. That's a nice conclusion.
Perfect. Speak to you soon.
All right, man. Be good.
Love you, man.
Love
Bye.
you all. See you later. Bye.